What's going on, guys? It's Julian. It's Tuesday. Surprising you guys with an early video because I may or may not do one tomorrow. I haven't decided yet. It's all going to depend on just how I feel tomorrow. Got some stuff I got to do. So today, I figured if I couldn't get to one Wednesday, I'd show you guys the process for what we're going to do on Wednesday. And what we're going to do is a French dip with some of that leftover. What's going on, Trado? I'm going to show you guys what we're going to do as far as with leftovers for that prime rib I smoked on Saturday. We're going to turn that into a French dip, which is essentially a steak cheese sandwich that you dip in a pan dripping like an au jus, and we made that ahead of time too. So I'm going to face you guys down towards the board, and by you guys, I just mean one person because it's all you right now. We're going to make bread. So, whenever I make bread, I like to get active dry yeast, and this is the difference between instant and active. Is active, you actually have to wake up. It's a dormant culture. So we've got some, a little bit more than room temp water. If it's warm, it's good. You don't want it too cold because it won't wake up at all. All right, so I like getting the water, like I said, as high as it can go. I think they're rated at let me actually get my whisk. 135, I think, is what it's rated for. If it exceeds 135, I believe it'll kill the yeast. So, I don't know if I've done a bread video with you guys before. Yeah. But if you guys have never made fresh bread, you're really missing out. You know, fresh bread, fresh pasta is kind of where I started when I was younger with certain things, because it taught me a lot of patience. You know, I'm not a master pasta worker and by any stretch of the imagination, not a master bread maker by any stretch of the imagination. However, I just enjoy making bread and pasta at home. So since this wasn't an instant yeast, this is an active dry, we, like I said, wake it up in lukewarm water, or as hot as your tap water can go. You can use bottled water. I know some people's preference is, you know, bottled water. I was talking to a guy that I actually got. This is the starting of a sourdough starter from Washington State that I got from Bread Vines MLT. They are a frequent person watching the video and commenting, so if you get a chance, check them out. Outstanding page. So I'm in the process of making my own starter. Well, they sent me starter, so I'm in the process of using their starter to start making my own sourdough bread. I've really been in a bread kind of mood and kick the last couple weeks, so they were gracious enough to send that out to me, and I can't wait to start making it. So, but you let this hang out in this water until it starts bubbling. You can already start to see that there's bubbles popping up on the top. That's a good sign. That's a sign that your yeast is not dead. Sometimes I like doing this even with the instant yeast because sometimes the yeast will be dead, and this is a great way to see that it's still alive, it's still kicking. If you get it too hot, it won't work. If you get it too cold, it won't work. Best bet is to throw it on hot and then put your finger under there. If you have to pull your finger away, it's way too hot, get a little bit cooler. Right? So we've got our flour. With most recipes, when it comes to baking, you want to use the most precise method possible, and the most precise method is getting yourself a little kitchen scale. You know, exact measurements in baking or where it's at. There's been plenty of dishes or plenty of breads, pastas. Sorry, my voice cracked. I just hit puberty. Plenty of the bread doughs that I've had where it'll say 2 cups or 2.5 cups or 3 cups, and then it just fucks up because it's not the right ratio. So you really, if you're following a recipe, this isn't my recipe. I'm gonna do a couple things that they didn't have in here, or a different way, I guess. So I'm using somebody else's recipe, something I Googled off there. As soon as I find the name, I'll put a link in there. That way you guys, if you want to check out their page, you can. Show them some love. You know, I don't ever like taking credit for anybody's stuff, but you know, they just didn't feel like going upstairs and getting my my baking book. Sorry, I'm off to the side here. I've got some butter that I'm working with. I didn't want to go upstairs and get my my bread book that I got when I was in culinary school. You know, for the most part, if I didn't need the book, the teachers over there were saying, you know, just rent this book, just borrow this book, you know, don't buy it. But there's a couple books from culinary school that I actually bought that I really enjoy, and my bread book is one of them. It's from the CIA, not the Central Intelligence Agency, it's the Culinary Institute of America. Fantastic book. I made so many breads from that book. If you guys have the money, I think it's like 50, 60 bucks. Hell of a find for that type of book. Really worth it. All right. So, I am not old school. I am not going to be doing this by hand. Let me actually take this hook off so I can get all this flour in here. There's about 350 grams, or I'm sorry, 450 grams of my King Arthur's AP flour. You can use bread flour. Bread flour is a little bit better because it's got a higher protein content, which is a softer bread. Makes for a better crumb and a better overall product. But this one works just fine. So I'm going to lock it into place, and we start out slow. That way we can get all this water starting to incorporate. Now you don't need much time. 5-10 minutes is really all you're really looking for. And this machine's going to do all of the work for us. Now we might have to take it out and you know, knead it a little bit just to make sure it forms the way I want it to. And then for the most part, it's just waiting game at this point. Like I told you, we're doing this for a French dip sandwich. This is more of an Italian style hoagie roll, so it's going to be a little bit chewier, and it's going to hold up really well to that meat and dunking that meat in the bread, or dunking that meat in the au jus. All right. And you really want to drizzle this liquid slow. With some recipes, like I said, they give you as close to an exact measurements as possible, but sometimes, depending on where they're at to where you're at, humidity plays a huge factor in bread. So you may need more or less liquid. So that's always something to really watch for. Now I know I'm going to pretty much use almost all of this water, and I never want to leave any of the yeast in there. Like I said, you guys pay for all of these ingredients, so you want to get everything you possibly can out of there. Don't want to waste anything. I'll show you what it's looking like inside. So we're going to let this go for 3 to 4 minutes, I think is what their recipe was calling for. And we'll take this out and we'll start adding that butter that we had in there. Like I said, this is the unglamorous part. I can actually walk you over here and show you something that I'm working on that I'll probably be having for dinner tomorrow. But we've got the sous vide going in here. And in here, we're working on some pastrami. Now I smoked this pastrami. Actually, a friend of mine from the sushi game down in Orlando called Kabuki Sushi actually posted a photo of some Wagyu. This is nowhere close to Wagyu because, you know, I'm not balling out of control like that dude is. That dude's a real badass when it comes to the sushi game. Like I said, if you're in Orlando, Kabuki Sushi, one of my favorite spots to go to. Henry Famosa, outstanding chef. And, took A5 Wagyu, brined it for that 7 days, and smoked it, and then sous vide it. And then they made pastrami. So I kind of, you know, took that inspiration from him, just with a more economical cut of meat. And I'm going to let this pastrami go for, probably got another 26 hours in there. 25 hours, I'm sorry. 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, it should be good to go. So, just waiting on that. Alright. Got about 2 minutes left on this. Let me see if there's any comments in here. If you have any problems with your KitchenAid not picking up the dry ingredients at the very bottom? Mine always does this. Yes, I usually go and take, this is a little bit more of a wetter dough because I'm going to be adding flour to this as it goes. Just a little bit to bring it all together. Yes, I do. And then what I usually do, what's going on, Henry, is I stop it, I lift it up, and then I take a, let me see if I got one real quick. I take, these are fantastic tools to have. I've always got one in my knife roll. I've always got a couple at home. Rubber spatula, they work fantastic. Bowl scrapers, rubber spatulas, heat resistant is where it's at. I had that thing for almost 10 years now. And what I like doing is, like, I'll stop this, I'll lift it up, and then I scrape the sides of the bowls down, front, and underneath with the rubber spatula just to bring up everything. And then if there's a lot of if there's a lot of dry still in that bottom, what I do is I take a squirt bottle full of room temp water, and then I just spray a little bit as it goes so it picks up everything, because sometimes there's not enough liquid in there to get everything up. And then with the addition of just a spray here or there, and you can control it with the spray bottle more because you're not dumping a whole bunch more water and then throwing off the balance to wet to dry. So those are two things that I'd recommend. Try scraping it, and then if it's still a lot of dry in the bottom, just get a little squirt bottle and throw a couple spritz in there to bring everything up. That's what I like doing. And that's how I do it. All right. So the next stage here is we are going to be adding a tablespoon at a time. Until it's fully immersed in there. And this is adding fat to it, which is going to have a softer dough. Now, like I said, I've never done this recipe, so I'm hoping it works out just fine. We're going to find out. So, worst comes to worst, I just redo it. But I wouldn't make you guys sit through it multiple times. What are you guys doing for dinner over these next couple days? You know, like I said, I'm doing this with some of my leftovers. All right, that butter's in there, so let's go ahead. We got 4 tablespoons of butter going in this one. And you want to make sure it's all mixed up before you add another one. You want it to be encompassed in there. You want it to be hanging out. You want it to be incorporated. Okay, let me check this again. It's almost there. This is the more, like I said, unglamorous spot of making bread. Right. So like I said, I like to take it, lift it, scrape it.
There's no incoming call.
Oh shit, Alexa's talking to me. I think the CIA is listening. I just like to scrape it to make sure everything's getting up there. Lock it back into place. And pop it back onto medium. And we're just waiting for that butter to get back incorporated. Almost there. We've only got 1 more tablespoon left. I saw somebody commented there. Let's see. I used to have a bread maker that would just mix everything together. My bread. I've never had a bread maker. I'd be curious to see how well those work. I know a couple people that have had them. They seem to like them. I like this method because it's one less tool I have to clean, or one less tool I have to find someplace for in my kitchen. And I've had this thing for 10 years, 10, 11 years, somewhere around there. I want to say right at 10 years, I think I got it. when we got to San Diego. It's on sale at the NEX. So it's a fantastic tool. It's held up really well, you know. I try to use it as often as possible. I do all of my breads, all of my pastas, you know, in here. Very rarely will I do, you know, anything by hand because it's too much time for me. You know, I've got other stuff going on. I got other stuff I want to do. You know, so I appreciate, you know, the tools that have been made because I've had, like I said, I've had to do a lot of this stuff by hand. And when I was in culinary school, I actually chose to do a lot of this stuff by hand so I could really appreciate the tools we have and the tools that have been created and that was our last tablespoon of butter. The tools we've had and the tools that have been created for us to, you know, not have to go through that same struggle in the kitchen that, you know, previous generations to mine has had to go through or had to, you know, deal with or find some kind of workaround. And it's also good to know how to do it by hand, you know, because these things aren't forever. You know, these tools aren't forever. So at this stage, I am going to start adding just a little bit more flour, about a tablespoon at a time, because it is going to be a little tacky, but I don't want it being so tacky where I can't work with it. And like I said, this is where, you know, the humidity plays a huge factor into how bread is made, you know, East Coast versus West Coast. North versus south, and, you know, sea level versus, you know, higher altitude. So I added about 3 tablespoons. That goes right where I want it. I'm just going to let it knead. This at a higher speed takes away me having to beat the hell out of this with my hands. What's going on, Newsom? Been a while. This takes away the process of me having to do it. Now, like I said, I'm still going to have to knead it because it is too wet to be used. And the whole purpose of kneading is to form that dough and to really get this working. Right? So, it's the same concept as when we do pasta. Make sure you've got a really big surface. Make sure you flour this very well, and also your hands so it doesn't stick. Like I said, if you guys have never, and what I like doing is I also like taking and sprinkling a little bit of flour on this as well. That way it doesn't eat all of the flour that's on my hands right away. I've got some kind of cushion ahead of time. It smells great, man. Fresh bread. It's just one of those things, like a fresh hot bread, a fresh hot roll is just something you can't really beat, and you can't be mad at. So let me get a little bit more flour. Like I said, you don't have to use all of it. And let me get rid of these comments real quick so I can see what you guys are seeing. And I can show you more in depth. So what I like doing when I like kneading, right? I like making sure all of the flour, or all of the bread, excuse me, is on this and not on my hands. Because this shit's hard to get off of after a while. What I like doing, taking it, pulling it away from me, and folding it. And then quarter turn, and I use your weight. You know, if you try to use your arms, I don't know if anybody's ever tried to, you know, do CPR or anything like that. If you use your arms, you're gonna get tired out. So this is a full body type of thing. So, you know, use your weight behind it. Use your hips. Dig into the ground a little bit with your feet. Like I said, it's a full body workout, full body exercise. And then push away. like I said, like taking, folding it in half, and then pushing my thumb and then rolling it up towards you guys. Right. Dough is very soft. I think this is going to be a great hoagie roll. You know, most subs, most breads that you use for hoagies, grinders, you know, sub, whatever you call it, man. It's the same idea. It's just a different terminology depending on where you grow up. You know, Philadelphia, Virginia area, that tri-state area up there, where Philly, New Jersey, and I guess New York meat, they call them grinders, call them hoagies. You know, so it just depends on where you come from. And if your dough starts sticking, get a little bit of that flour in there. Like I said, this isn't the most glamorous part of the job, but it is a necessary part of the job. Right. So we get a little bit more flour. Like I said, I don't want it tacky. I want a nice, soft, and firm dough. So, you know, like I said, I noticed a bunch of people kind of dropped off because this is the, you know, the more workhorse portion of this. You know, it's not pretty, it's not glamorous, you know, but it's a necessity. I was going to say it's a necessary evil, but you know, nothing's evil about French bread unless you're a celiac, and then, you know, you got more than just a strand of gluten as an arch nemesis if you're at that point. So, all right, so I think I'm pretty happy with where my dough's at. So I like doing, just so it forms and rises correctly. What I like doing is I like taking it, putting it as close in my hand as possible, and forming it. Now I would form it over here on this area that I just kneaded it on. There's quite a bit of flour on here, so it's just gonna slide. Now you want some kind of catch, you know, so it really forms and tightens up. But try to get it as close to a ball as possible. All right, and we got a greased, actually I might throw just a little bit more in there because I don't want anything to really stick in there. What I like doing, if I don't have non-stick spray, is I like using lard Crisco because it doesn't really impart very much flavor, and it doesn't do much other than helps everything not stick to this bowl. Because this is going to rise for about an hour. I'm not going to keep you guys on here for an hour. You know, some of you guys' attention span couldn't make it past the kneading for 3 minutes, which I don't blame you. Like I said, it's not glamorous. You know, if you're not enjoying the fresh bread, you know, there's really no point in, you know, watching the same repetition for, you know, 5-6 minutes. And that is essentially what we're going to do for the bread. Now we're going to let this rise. Now, I like letting it rise outside. Yes, outside, right? So I like taking our towel here. Now the heat outside helps it rise quicker. I like taking a nice rubber band and popping it down so nothing can get in there. Right? You don't want to walk out there and then you see some asshole of an ant or a lizard trying to get in there. All right, so this keeps them out. And you bring it all the way up to the lip. You pull that towel down tight. Now you don't have to leave it outside. Like I said, it's Florida, it's hotter. It's gonna cut my time in half, but you also have to worry about the humidity. Luckily on my back porch, screened in, covered. It's on the back side of the house, so there's not a whole bunch of sun hitting it now. Doesn't really get much sun until the end of the night, and it's like a half hour where it heats everything up. You know, it's usually pretty nice, pretty cool back there. But I've got the fan out there as well, so it's gonna create a nice breeze, right? So it's gonna take all that stuff, and then it's just, I like doing it. You know, it's fun. It makes me feel like I'm back in the day where they used to let this shit hang out outside, and that's how they did when they didn't have, you know, yeast like we do. You know, packets of yeast. Yeast was outside. That's how they had everything just rise. And there's a lot of doughs where, a lot of theories behind it, where they had some kind of leavening agent where they would drop, you know, a piece of dough like this was into a fire vise, into a pan, and that ash actually helped puff up and increase the yield of the bread. You know, so I don't know much, you know, more than, you know, what I've learned, what I've read, and what I've watched on TVs and shit like that when it comes to that type of stuff. But I figured, hey man, you can use this as a little party knowledge that nobody gives a shit about. So take it for what it's worth. However, I might do another video. I'm probably gonna do another video just to show you guys how. You could probably get 3 out of me today. One, to show you how to form this in just a little bit. Like I said, it'll be a half hour, hour or so. And I'll probably come back on here and then we'll divide the dough. We'll punch it down, divide it, and then shape them into the rolls, and then we'll let them proof, which is raise again, and then we'll bake them. For the prime rib, if you guys don't have a meat slicer like myself, working on getting one very soon, because for the food truck, I'm for sure having, you know, pastrami, roast beef sandwich, that type of stuff on certain days. I'm gonna have it on there, so a meat slice would be, you know, very nice to have. But some of these things are expensive and they take some time to get, you know, but nonetheless. So I'm gonna show you guys how to pick up the meat as well. But since you guys don't have a meat slicer, just like myself, a great way to do super thin slices. Not only have a sharp knife, but also take the meat that you're gonna use. Like I said, we're gonna use that smoked ribeye that I had. And then you put it in the freezer about a half hour, 45 minutes, and you can really get paper thin cuts, even with the dull blade if you guys don't have the sharpest blade. Helps, like I said, getting those thin cuts, those thin deli slices. And then all we're really gonna do is pick this up in some chicken stock. Well, actually, we're gonna use the beef au jus that we have because I had quite a bit of that left over. It didn't get used as much as I thought it would. And we're gonna use that to pick it up with a little bit of butter, and then we got some smoked provolone, and then yeah, that's it. So I'll see you guys anywhere from a half hour to an hour, maybe 2 hours, who knows. But check back again. Thank you for spending the time with me. Thank you for the questions. I'll get to them after I get some stuff done. I got to clean up my little mess here. But thank you again for spending some time with me, and I'll see you at least